Lost in Space has gotten its second reboot, modernized for 2018, and all that goes with it. So the question is it worthy of the binge? Let's take a look. Lost in Space has just dropped on Netflix as an original series, which kind of doesn't make a lot of sense given it originally aired back in the 1960s. But this is the second notable reboot of this franchise. The first one was the Stephen Hopkins film from 1998 starring William Hurt, Mimi Rogers, Gary Oldman as Dr. Smith, and Matt LeBlanc. The 1998 version wasn't without its issues, but it seemed to have an understanding of the original, even if they made the Jupiter 2 into an egg. But I confess I had a soft spot for that ship. There was another failed pilot which you might be able to find on YouTube, but it's hardly worth mentioning. This Netflix version will have to be recognized as a legitimate reboot, but is it any good? Well, the problems with rebooting a popular property like this one are mostly going to be related to backlash from traditionalists or fans of the original show. In this case, most of those complaints are going to hold up. First of all, they made some big changes to some primary characters. Let's start with John and Maureen Robinson. So the Robinson couple seem to be estranged. John, played by Toby Stephens, kind of generically this time, is a career soldier instead of an astrophysicist, who spends a lot of time deployed instead of at home. Maureen, Molly Parker, is an engineer and in many ways is the head of this modern version of the Robinson family. We find out that John's continued absence has built up some resentment amongst the family members, and his presence on the mission to Alpha Centauri was his idea of a last-ditch effort to salvage his relationship with him. The fact that John is not an academic but a military man feels like it robs the character some depth. It also robs that dynamic from Don West, who in this version is played by Ignacio Cerricho. He is now a Han Solo type, a smuggler with some engineering and mechanical skills. So Don West is kind of a bad boy. This really worked out better in the 1998 movie with Matt LeBlanc, but here it is what it is. Then there is Dr. Smith. Now this time, Parker Posey is the fork-tongued, manipulative, self-serving character we'd love to hate. Jonathan Harris originated the role and to this day still owns it, post-mortem. Gary Oldman did the role justice, as he does to everything he touches pretty much. But Parker Posey also does justice to the role, even if she is not actually the real Dr. Smith, but an identity thief. The real Dr. Smith was played by Bill Mumy in a brief cameo. You will love to hate Posey as the villain, so that makes her successful. But why make Dr. Smith a woman? We'll come back to that. Another change is Will Robinson, played by Maxwell Jenkins, is not an established child prodigy yet. In fact, he failed the testing for the selection process for the Alpha Centauri mission. But he is very smart, and this was kind of a nice dynamic with the character and a change for the better. When it in fact turns out that Will is a genius and gets to prove it gradually, it's far more gratifying. And Jenkins does a competent job bringing Will to life. Now let's get to the elephant in the room. Judy Robinson is black. She's played by Taylor Russell, who does a decent job. They explain that she is not the biological daughter of John Robinson, obviously, and it's clear that she is every bit a member of the family as everyone else. But was it really necessary? Again, we'll come back to that. She is the resident medical expert. We get the sense that she is sort of almost a doctor, but she is good at it. She has this look-before-leaping trait that occasionally gets her into trouble as well. Penny Robinson this time out is played by Mina Sundwell, who brings her own charm to the role. She has her work cut out for her as the middle child, because that syndrome doesn't simply apply to this character in the story, but it is a dynamic that applies to the role as well. Her performance is effective, but one of the bright spots from the 1998 film was Lacey Chabert knocked her version of Penny out of the park. So Sundwell has some very big shoes to fill here. Then finally, the robot. The old reliable B-9 that was taken to space by the Robinsons was replaced by an alien killing machine that repurposed itself to the service of Will Robinson when he helped rescue it. The robot starts off as more anthropomorphic upon initial appearance than its previous incarnations, and modifies itself into an even further humanoid appearance after imprinting on Will. I have mixed feelings about this robot. Its friendly behavior is never really explained. It takes to Will like a stray puppy and shows him blind loyalty and will try to protect him at all costs, even when it was clearly designed to be a machine of destruction. Now that said, the scenes with the robot are interesting to watch. The design is sturdy, though the face being a monitor full of snow feels like kind of a cheat. So let's very quickly mention what modernizing the old classic means. Now I am a fan of diversity in storytelling, everyone should be. But I am not a fan of forced diversity or transparent agenda storytelling. That is propaganda. There are times when adaptations or reboots have very clearly crossed the color or gender lines with varying degrees of success. When you take a classic story like Lost in Space and are appealing to its fan base, you have to recognize that the audience is attracted to specific traits of those characters. Modernizing them should still preserve the best of those traits. So I get that there were clear and conscious efforts made to make sure that we understand that this Maureen Robinson is pretty much in charge. Casting Molly Parker was a step in that direction, a good step. Her performance is solid, but asserting Maureen seems to happen largely at the expense of John. Again, I don't agree with making John a military man. The character has always been a brain, and the leader of the mission. I know that the Guy Williams swashbuckler version is iconic, though campy, and even William Hurt's version played up the intellectual aspect, but Stevens' portrayal comes off as kind of mundane at times. But I can't fault him for that, it's really the writing. This is not a problem for modern storytelling, provided you aren't fighting against history. Again, to reference the imperfect 1998 film, this dynamic was handled much better. Mimi Rogers Maureen was also an academic, but when pushed, she had no problem taking charge and asserting her authority. She was not written as a pushover. Now, I do find it easier to forgive casting Smith as a woman. To be the third male actor to play that part after Jonathan Harris and Gary Oldman, that would be a thankless job. You can't improve on what either one of those guys did. But Parker Posey, who has a knack for playing hateable characters, scores big here. I couldn't stand her. I hated every second she was on screen, but in a way that served the story. So, why is Judy black? Again, Taylor Russell is fine in the role. If I were to be critical, her version of Judy lacks a sense of maturity I would identify with the character, but other than that, her ethnicity takes nothing away from that character except that it is. It appears as forced diversity. The only way this would be less of an issue is if it were publicly known that in casting for the role, Russell screen tested better than any other actor reading, and then the decision was made to make the oldest child one of color based on her being the best actor for the part, period. By the way, I confess I do have less of a problem that Don West is now Latino. I have more of a problem that he is no longer a major and is a smuggler. But casting that character with a Hispanic actor doesn't change him per se. It is, however, interesting that the character is no longer white, but is now a smuggler and an opportunist. I wonder if and how that one got past them. All this other stuff aside, what about the story? Well, the 10 episodes are kind of generic. The big, campy, cheesy storylines from the 60s series and even the 1998 film are gone in favor of more apparently grounded, politically correct attempts at family drama, into which an identity-thieving sociopath and extraterrestrial android have been wedged in. Although, ironically, that is exactly what happened in the original series after the first unaired pilot was made without Dr. Smith and the B9 robot. But is it watchable? Yes, surprisingly. It's not a dumpster fire so long as you know that you're getting into Lost in Space in name only. It does have some entertaining moments peppered in with why did that character do something that stupid moments. But the acting isn't bad, the effects are up to snuff, and the Jupiter 2 is a saucer this time. More or less. Okay, it's a small Defiant with no weapons, but we're not getting that classic J2 back ever again, so deal with it. But overall, what made Lost in Space what it is were those big, broad, campy adventures. If you're going to tell a new story and call it Lost in Space and eliminate the camp and more fantastical elements, then at least have a sense of scale and some high stakes. This version doesn't have those in large supply. So is it binge-worthy? No, not really. It's worth watching, but pace yourself. Watch one a week or maybe one every couple days, and hope that if they do a second season that they tighten the format a bit. So that is one opinion. What's yours? Have you seen the new show? What'd you think? Please leave your comment below, and do us a favor, please click that like button. And if you'd like to see more content here, please click the subscribe button and the bell for more. You have just been spoiled. Come back again fresh next time and we'll do it again. See ya.